Physical media has always been a big part of my life. As a kid, one of the only ways I had to consume media was through owning it physically. Now I'm in my early 20s and the way we consume media now has completely changed. Opinions vary, but many seem to consider physical media unnecessary, and some even go as far as calling it a dying way of consuming media. In the age of streaming and downloading services, it can be easy to see why people think this and choose not to even bother with physical media anymore. Though I do think that this applies to some physical media more than others. For example, vinyls have recently gone up in sales, video games are still on discs, and online libraries offer a convenient way to have all your video games in one collection. Though I think the one most in trouble of becoming a thing of the past is DVDs and Blu-rays. I've been collecting Blu-rays since I was about 12 years old, and what started out as buying a few here and there has turned into spending thousands of dollars on special editions and collections from my Criterion, Imprint, Arrow. Buying what seemed like was a dying form of media sort of made me feel like I was one of the only ones still committed to owning collections like these. But over the years I've met people that sort of do the same thing as me and are committed to buying collections like these ones here. One of these friends is Kyle.
Hi, my name is Kyle.
I could sit here and tell you why I think collecting physical media is still an important thing to do, but Kyle's dedication and commitment to still collecting movies like these is beyond what I initially thought, so I think it's best if you just hear it from him.
So it's just sort of I guess in a way, a bit of a family tradition, because obviously when I was growing up, that's like how we would watch movies and TV shows. When we weren't watching them on TV, I remember when we got our first DVD player, it literally came with like 5 free DVDs. So obviously, like, I grew up with that element of watching them. There was like obviously no streaming, none of that sort of thing back then. I guess in a way, like, it will become more and more of a common thing, and I guess because of that, physical media will probably die in the future and no one will really care about it. But the other thing I always think about as well is I find that normally when you completely get rid of something, people will often miss it. And that's like sort of almost the case with vinyls, for example. Like, vinyls were becoming like less and less of a common thing, but there's like a huge market for them now. Like we sell like heaps of vinyls at work, for example, and maybe that might happen with DVDs because people might start to see them as cool collector items, or they might start seeing that they're handy in a sense where you don't have to worry about internet or any sort of downloads of any sort. But those are the main 2 thoughts that go through my head when I think about Netflix. There is one other thing that I tend to think about with Netflix. It's not really a certain thing, but it's more a thing of access, because there's so much like content out there. There's so many movies, so many like bands that release so much music that you don't even hear about. And I find particular streaming services like Netflix, sometimes it doesn't go broad enough. And I think it might maybe like close a portal into a whole world of music and movies that we don't even really hear much about, that artists have put like tons of effort into. Generally, if they have put in effort into the physical release of a movie, they'll include special features that you can't access on streaming, like featurettes that may or may not be on YouTube. Sometimes like they might even make a huge special edition with all sorts of different things in it. I've got like a couple of special editions of movies that have like the CD soundtrack, for example, and that soundtrack to that movie won't be available in any other way unless you want to like stream it on like YouTube, or maybe if it's on Spotify or something. And sometimes like you'll find that with some of the special editions, depending on who's working on it at the time, they'll like put in heaps of effort into like the artworks, and I think that's handy for like independent artists. Sometimes they get commissioned to do work for that sort of thing, and they'll put in like gratuitous amounts of efforts into it. The other thing as well is they're not just distributing the films for your own personal entertainment, they're actually also technically preserving films that were lost a long time ago that you probably would not have had any access to. Because that's the thing, like Stan and Netflix and all that, they don't do any of that sort of thing. Maybe they might in the future, but if it wasn't for like Curzon or Arrow or Criterion or Eureka or Indicator, there's 100% so many like films we probably wouldn't have been able to see. Because the other good thing about them is they don't just put it out on physical media, they'll also do like screenings at cinemas for people to go and actually watch it on the big screen. And I think that's an important thing, particularly like I was saying earlier, there's like so much like great work out there that people just don't talk about, and companies like that allow people to see all those films and have their minds expanded. That sounded like a bit of a hippie then, but yeah, those are companies that are very like passionate about film and preserving it and making it look as like good as possible, particularly like Criterion. Like they're arguably like the most upmarket distributor of the lot, because they put in like so much effort into the picture quality of their films, and they often, Arrow do it as well, but they often get like the directors, like they give them a hands-on as well to make sure it looks exactly the way they intended. And I think often if you do that and you have such good quality control in your movies, it might maybe entice people to watch it more, because they're getting the exact thing that the director wanted to show them, if that makes sense. The thing as well is I'm not like just collecting this for the sake of collecting it. It's obviously a passion of mine, but one of the great things about having like a big collection is I'll be able to share it with whoever. And a lot of the stuff I collect is stuff that is often harder to get, like not something you could just look up on Netflix or Stan or YouTube. And I'd love to try and maybe preserve my collection for as long as possible, because hopefully one day I'll be able to share it with people and open their minds to movies they have never heard of before.